I'm Lesley Gibson. I'm a writer looking to find a vibrant, creative, diverse community to call home. Home is that basic need for shelter, safety and support, and it's what we all have in common, isn't it? But a sense of belonging may always remain elusive. In these first 6 podcasts, I'll be talking to Val McDermid, the award-winning crime writer, folk indie band The Tin Pigeons, and Keely Mills, the Chubby Mermaid, as well as poets, wandering minstrels, artists and sculptors from across the UK who will be deciding whether they're creative because of or despite their hometown. Where will I be tempted to lay down my hat, I wonder?
Make me believe in all that I don't know.
We're starting off with a very big hitter, my son Rory. And then after him, it's Val McDermid, the award-winning crime writer. I'm especially pleased that she's agreed to be part of this podcast because she is from my hometown of Kirkcaldy, just across the water from Edinburgh, near the Forth Road bridges. And that stretch of water has spawned a great number of writers. Val herself, Val McDermid, Ian Rankin, Ian Banks, Muriel Spark, the list is almost endless. But hey, before her, Rory explains very beautifully what my dilemma is.
For background, I guess we should mention that you started in Kirkcaldy in a working class family. Kirkcaldy is a city outside Edinburgh that is maybe not the most pursued. We could say that. If you've ever been to Kirkcaldy, you'll understand. She has then moved over to quite a nice part of England via various other stops, including Nottingham, to a very nice town to, amongst other things, give birth to me. So, Stamford does not feel like home, is that fair to say?
Yeah.
And with our ageing family, there's a slight tug to go back to Kirkcaldy, is that fair to say? So, although there is a tug to go back, there's not a particular passion to.
I think you're right. There's not a passion to stay and there's not a passion to go either.
Right, so we're caught in between two places. And Mother is looking kind of for places in between, possibly symbolically, in the kind of Yorkshire region to possibly move to in hopes of finding a home. A sense of belonging, she says. My opinion is home is related to nostalgia and certain naivety and youth, but as people age and you become more distant from them, and that kind of setup you had where it was school, where it was, I don't know, long days on the beach or whatever it was, is no longer possible. You can't go back to it. It's not the sort of experience that she once called home, and I think that you don't get that back. My experience home was Stamford, and after being at university in Lancaster for 3 years and then now in London for 1 year, I wouldn't call any 3 of those places my home anymore. However, I would say that I don't have a yearning to find it as much, although I am a lot younger. Thoughts?
I often feel tremendously strange. I was going to say guilty, but I don't think guilty is the right word. I feel strange that my hometown is not your hometown. We don't share a hometown like communities used to, when generations grew up in the same place. And to me, that feels really odd, and I can't really reconcile it, because even though you're independent from me now, you're becoming independent from me, I will never feel that, even though I know it's happening. Do you see what I'm saying? I almost feel like I'll lose a part of you if I move away from Stamford.
Just for context, she's crying, that's why she's handed it over. I don't know, maybe moving somewhere to create more bonds is going to create more, home and interaction with your kids than it would be to stay in the place where they have chosen to live.
So if I was to move, hopefully you would still come and visit me, would you? So if you came and visited me, we could discover a new place together, couldn't we?
All that you could show.
So today I'm in Harrogate with Val McDermid, and I'm absolutely thrilled that she's agreed to be part of this podcast. What I'm wondering, I suppose, is how do you feel about Kirkcaldy now you've left? And was there ever a pull to go back? I know you're not far away from it. Is that far enough, basically?
Yeah, I didn't want to go back to Kirkcaldy. I mean, for mostly practical reasons. For communication links and things, Edinburgh is incredibly handy with airport, trains, road system. Yeah. Fife is still sort of stuck out on the side a bit. You know, you still have to make an effort to go to Fife. You don't accidentally end up in Fife. Yeah. And also, I mean, I have to say, you know, Kirkcaldy is a town that's really suffering these days.
It is.
It's a town that's on its uppers. You know, when I was growing up, it was very much a working class town, but there was lots of jobs. Everybody was in work. There was linoleum, there was the linen mills, there was the carpet factory, there was the pit. There was plenty of work to go around, and people they were not prosperous, but they were fine. You know, they could. They had a roof over their heads. They could feed their bairns. They could maybe have a couple of wee holidays a year, and life was certainly, it was okay. People got by, and there was certainly a lively feel to the town. The high street on a Saturday was bustling. It was a great social scene down the high street on a Saturday. Everybody went down the town
dressed up, as my mum said, got the best clothes on.
But now it's the high street's like a ghost town. So many of the big shops have left. Marks and Spencer's has gone, Debenham's gone, British Home Stores. It's all, you can see the tumbleweed practically. And there's poverty in the town. The Gallatin ward has the highest rate of child poverty in Scotland outside Glasgow.
Oh, I didn't realise that.
They've got a thriving food bank. So for all those reasons, I mean, it's a town. I mean, and as well, there was a sort of cultural life to the town that doesn't seem to me to be quite the same anymore. You know, the Elbow Room was a great hub for folk music, and you know, all the big names of the 60s and 70s went to the Elbow Room. So you'd be watching, you know, the likes of Billy Connolly, Jerry Rafferty, at Barbara Dixon at the Elbow Room. They still got the football and the ice hockey. But, you know, the Rovers are languishing in the first division these days, 2 divisions below the top one. And, you know, it's the fortunes of the club have not been great in recent years.
But at least you're trying to help, aren't you? You're the sponsor now, aren't you?
Oh, the shirt sponsor, yeah. But so it's a place that, for me, is you know, fallen far from grace. Not that I don't think I would have wanted to go back to Kirkcaldy anyway, because for all sorts of reasons, I think it's hard to go back to where you grew up. And Fife in particular has the attitude of a Kent or feather. You know, and my dad famously, my dad was a scout for Wraith Rovers, and he famously discovered Jim Baxter, the greatest footballer Scotland has ever produced. So in Kirkcaldy, it doesn't matter how many books I sell or how many prizes I win, I'm always going to be Jim McDermid's lassie.
Yeah, the football comes first, absolutely.
To the point where, you know, I mean, I've on occasion gone into the chip shop, and John Valenti, who's the third generation of his family to run the chip shop, has called over people to the till going, see her dad discovered Jim Baxter. Not, you know, she's an international best-selling author or anything like that. So it's a place where, you know, I mean, certainly it keeps your feet on the ground.
Absolutely, I couldn't snog anybody without my mum having heard about it about an hour and a half later. And it's quite a big town. There were 65,000 people in it when I was growing up, and my mum still knew everything I was doing. Am I right in thinking that you live partially in Edinburgh and partially in Manchester? Is that right, or is that gone past now?
That's changed. For years, I had a sort of little commute quite a big commute because I shared custody of my son with my ex. Right. But he's off to university now, so I don't have to schlep back and forwards anymore. So I'm pretty much full time in Scotland now, except when I'm running about elsewhere doing other things. So we're in Edinburgh, and we've got a wee place in East Neuk. So that's by the sea.
Actually, Ian Rankin told me to get a caravan and go to the East Neuk because he said it's the best of both worlds if I couldn't afford 2 houses. So I might do that, although the last time I was in the East Neuk, I was so cold. I forgot I could ever be so cold. We had to go and get haggis toasty in the museum after.
It's like, just get another jumper.
That's what I'll have to do.
You know, you live on the East Coast, the price you pay is the wind. You get a lot of sunshine and not nearly as much rain as in the West. But you do get those biting Snell north winds. Yeah,
I remember an old English boyfriend actually told me when I took him up there that actually I suited the wind. So I think I must have grown up with it in my bones.
That's why we all have such fabulous skin, because we get exfoliated on a daily basis.
I really like that. That's positive thinking. So I've always wondered why it is that stretch of river, the Firth of Forth, which I know is absolutely in my bones, that and the bridges,
has spawned so many writers? Have you got a theory on that?
Well, I think. I mean, for my generation, it comes down to simply the education system. Fife Education Authority in the 1960s was very proactive. It was also, I suppose, you'd have to say, quite parochial. The overwhelming majority of people who taught me were from Fife. I would say about 90% of the teachers at Kirkcaldy High School were from Fife.
Yeah.
So people went away to university or to teacher training college, and they came back and they taught in the area where they'd grown up.
Yeah.
So they had a kind of affinity. They understood the socioeconomics of the area, if you like.
Yeah.
'Cause they knew the backgrounds of the kids they were teaching.
Yeah.
So I think that gave them an extra insight, I suppose, into the way that we were taught. But certainly, I think that the education I had both in primary school and at high school was superb. I mean, at the time I was at Kirkcaldy High School in the 1960s and early 70s, we regularly won more bursaries to Edinburgh University than any other
Yeah, I
school
read
in
that in the
Scotland,
book.
including the
Yeah.
fee-paying schools.
Yeah.
And the school was absolutely committed not just to academic excellence, but also to extracurricular stuff. So you were expected to play sport. You were expected to take part in the musical life of the school. You were expected to do something like debating or join one of the societies. I mean, there were societies for everything.
Yeah.
You know, there was a golf club, a chess club, a science club.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I forget that actually.
Yeah.
I've forgotten that.
And so every night after school, the place was still buzzing because people were doing all these extracurricular activities. And so that gave you that, I suppose, a sense of being quite well-rounded in lots of ways, because you weren't just studying and then going home and playing with your pals or whatever. There was a structure beyond the academic life of the school, and I think that's really the reason why there's that sort of band of my generation of sort of myself, Ian Rankin, Craig Russell, Ian Banks, that sort of strand of writers, because we were given an opportunity to escape from essentially working class lives. To escape from, traditionally the way out of the working class was sport, but for us we were given an opportunity to escape into a world of the mind, if you like.
Yeah, I certainly had very inspirational English teachers, and I think that's why I am, a writer. So they were just odd, but fantastic. But still, I meet people now at home who will say, "Oh, I remember you were in XA." Because we were streamed, and I think that did cause a bit of division. I think because people will say they wouldn't have spoken to me because I was in a different streaming, but I was slightly after you in the schooling, so things might have changed.
When I was, it was streaming, and of course I was in the E class. And then by the time we came to third year, we were streamed by subject. Right. But I don't know. It worked for me. It worked for a whole generation of people. And the Scottish system, which was profoundly different from the English system.
Definitely.
And because in Scotland, if you went to what was called a junior high, it wasn't like being sent to a secondary modern. It wasn't a sink. I mean, every year in fifth year, there were people who came up from the junior highs who'd done well in their O grades and wanted to continue with their education. So it wasn't the end of the road.
No. So do you feel now that you're back, because I have read in your book that you felt exiled, really, when that's one of the words you've used was exiled when you lived down south, and that's definitely how I feel. I feel exiled, whilst at the same time, my children are English now. I've got a terrible guilt about leaving their hometown. It's all very confusing for me. Do you feel less exiled now that you're,
I'm home?
Not at all at home.
I don't feel exiled at all. I mean, this is my home.
Yeah,
This
absolutely.
is where I belong. It's where my heart is. It's where I understand the culture. I understand the history. I understand the music. I understand the politics.
It's where people know who you are without trying.
You can say a thing and you don't have to explain what you mean.
Exactly. I've been trying to explain that to other people, but how lovely that you have.
And most people in England have no concept of that because they don't know anything about Scotland except they've watched Braveheart.
Yeah.
They don't know anything about the history, the politics, the culture of the country. So they think that we're just being pathetic or whatever, or nationalistic. What I see in Scotland now is not a narrow blood nationalism. It's not you were born here, so you're Scottish. It's you've chosen to be here.
Yeah.
You're one of us, you're Scottish.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter whether you were born in Romania or Brazil.
Yeah.
If you've chosen to come here and live among us, then you're one of us.
Well, I'm really glad to hear you say that. I feel a real need to reclaim my heritage. I've been away since I was 17, but always felt very Scottish. And for a variety of reasons, haven't been able to go back. And I really feel I've missed out, and it's time for me now, to go back and reclaim that.
Yep.
So I'm going to do a bit of exploring. But I'm interested that even when you weren't living in Scotland, they were such a big feature of your writing, because that gave you the opportunity, didn't it, to explore.
It made me feel like I was back home.
Yes.
When you're writing about it, it takes you back there.
Yeah, and that's good to know, because that's what I do too, although I try to write I do write in the vernacular, which really doesn't work in England. So
doesn't really work in Scotland either for most people.
But why is that, I wonder?
Because what we've learned to read on is standard English.
Does that not mean that we can push or do we just need to do it little bit by little bit,
Well, it
pushing
depends.
the
I
ball?
mean, there are writers who write in Scots, but you're by definition restricting your audience.
Yeah,
You have to kind of hear it in your head
yeah,
to get it.
yeah.
And that's quite difficult for people.
Okay.
I mean, it mostly works in dramatic terms. If you're doing radio drama or stage drama, that works much better in the vernacular. But on the page, it's really hard. I mean, I speak, good braid Scots when I have to. I have a lot of dialect words in my vocabulary because my grandmother used an idiolect that was rich in dialect words. But even when I'm reading it on the page, I sometimes have to think, what's that? What's that?
Yeah. Well, thank you. I really appreciate. I know you've got a busy day, and I don't want to keep you any longer. But thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome.
What's really interesting about what Val has to say, for me, is that I had only just recently realised that the sense of displacement I feel as a writer, as a person, as a woman, as a mother, is really, I had always thought it was about a sense of place. And in fact, what I came to realise is that the gulf between my working class background and this middle class leafy existence in Stamford is possibly one that I haven't allowed myself to think about or to consider would be a problem. I feel so very privileged. Why would that be a problem? And it certainly is a first world problem, but that socio-economic shift has actually been harder to assimilate than I thought. Also, it's now making me think about my mum, because she's coming for a visit tonight with her sister, who is over from Australia. I wonder if it's worth my asking my mum and her brother, Chris, about their ideas of home. Okay, so here I am in Wetherspoons in Stamford with my family. There's my mum, who's still in Kirkcaldy in Fife, her brother Chris, her little brother, the bairn we call him, although you're not really a bairn anymore, are you? And he lives in Essex now, and I'm just wanting to get their views on really home, where I should live, why I can't settle anywhere, and what their own plans are, how they feel about where they live. So who'd like to start?
Well, I think, although my family are away now, I miss them, but I love it when they come home, and I think it's up to them where they want to stay, where they're happy. But for me, I prefer Kirkcaldy, because I know a lot of people don't like it, but I think it's got everything. It's got nice sandy beaches, it's got nice parks, and a lovely coastline on the best day.
It has, you're right. It's got all that going for it.
I've got all my friends, I've got my hobbies, and I've always been able to see my kids a lot and my grandchildren. So Whatever.
You're happy to stay there.
If they're happy, I'm happy.
Right.
That's my opinion.
Thanks very
Anything
much.
else?
No, that's it. But you like Stamford, don't you? though, as well?
I forgot to say that. Absolutely, I love Stamford. Love coming to Stamford. I love going to Australia. We have another sister who lives near Nottingham, who is nice to visit her as well. And I have a brother in Kirkcaldy who he loves Kirkcaldy as well, so we're fine.
So where
Loads
do you
of
think
friends.
I should move to, though, Mum?
Well, I'm not so very sure, because the thing is, you've got, as you say, you've got your family here,
Yeah.
and you've got to do what makes your children happy. That's what I feel like.
Yeah.
You know, so you could see them a lot.
Yeah.
You have to be able to see them, but on the other hand, it would be nice for you to have some family.
Yeah, because they're not actually living here.
Because they're
are they?
not actually
so
living
there's one
here,
in
yeah.
Leeds and one in London, and the youngest one's still with
Yes.
me
Yeah.
for a while anyway. Yeah.
So it would be, I think it would be nice if you had some family of your own, you know, round about, like I'm talking about siblings and cousins and
things.
things like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks very much, Mum.
Well, you're
That's
very
interesting.
welcome.
Do you want to give it to Christopher? So Christopher the Bairn is in Essex, and that's with his wife Rona, and you've got your daughter still lives. She's in Essex, aren't she?
In Chelmsford,
Right. Okay.
and his son lives in Edinburgh. Still.
Right. Okay. So what are you thinking about things now?
Well, I moved down to Essex 37 years ago, but before that I was in the Merchant Navy and moved around a bit. I always came back to Kirkcaldy initially. Yeah, it's a difficult one. I mean, obviously I've got memories of a kid living in Kirkcaldy, which I always, when I go up and visit Kirkcaldy, I always go around those places and try and remember what it was like when I was a kid there. But I've been so long in England now, down in Essex, and I have the kids, grandkids, 3 grandkids now. It's a very difficult thought to actually move away. I have thought about it. I've thought about moving someplace else, Yorkshire, Northumbria, East Lothian in Scotland. But it's a very, very difficult to move away from your immediate family, very difficult.
Yeah.
People say that it's not far away nowadays, you know, trains and planes and stuff, but it's still difficult to do it, very difficult to do it.
I found it was quite easy in my head until I actually had to try and spend the money on it, and then it became really very
The
difficult.
logistics of it are quite difficult. Driving now, when you get older as well, is not as easy.
So what I'm wondering is, really, because you've got those family ties, the same as I have, that's what we're talking about, but do you feel settled in Essex? You, if it was your choice, just yours, and you didn't have anybody else to think about, would that be your choice?
No, I think I would move actually, because I'm one of these people that's always looking for something better, I think. So I think I would like to move further back to Scotland, because it's where the roots come from. So I think I would like, not necessarily back to Kirkcaldy, but some place in Scotland. I would like.
I think that's where I envy Mum, actually,
Yeah.
because she's happy there where
Yeah.
she is. She's found fulfilment there, and she's had her family there, still got her friends and her memories and all of that, and I quite envy that, actually.
Yes, indeed. I wish I was like that as well.
Yeah.
I wish I could find some place that I really felt settled in, but I don't think I have yet.
The Way Home Project is written and presented by me, Lesley Gibson. The editor was Claire Crofton. Music and project artwork by the Tin Pigeons. Get off now and plug to the pod website for more insights, comments and transcripts, along with photos and bits of other fluff and stuff. Remember to describe and subscribe, and invite your friends along so you can talk about me afterwards. More next week.